I woke to the sound of something humming, a deep, vibrating hum that felt like it was massaging my bones without my permission. My eyelids peeled open with the grace of rusted hinges, revealing a ceiling of translucent glass that displayed a slow-moving swirl of violet clouds. Not storm clouds, space clouds, gas nebulae. Definitely not Kansas. Unless Kansas had upgraded drastically since I left. I tried to sit up, discovered I was both weightless and strapped down, which created a fun flailing fish effect. A shimmering field of light held my chest like an invisible, overprotective parent. Before panic could fully introduce itself, a figure glided into view. She looked human, almost. Same height, similar build, same, I have a face and 2 arms. Please don't scream configuration. But her ears were long, elegant, tapering back like soft blades. Silver hair cascaded in weightless waves, moving as if underwater, even though we were very much not underwater, unless this was an extremely deceptive fish tank. Her eyes were a calm shade of deep emerald, and they studied me with clinical interest, like I was a rare bug that had started doing taxes. You regained consciousness sooner than projected, she said, voice soft but precise. Your biological resilience is statistically inconvenient. Thanks, I croaked. I've always dreamed of being inconvenient. She blinked, slowly, thoughtfully. I couldn't tell if she was confused or if that was just her default facial software. You experienced a crash on the surface of Lethera 3, she continued. Your vessel disintegrated. You should not be alive. Well, I said, I always suspected I was too stubborn to die, and also too handsome. Another long blink. Neither factor appears in my report. Great. Humor was dying a slow, miserable death in this room. The hovering pod released a faint hiss, and the field restraining me softened. My limbs floated slightly. I could smell something sterile like mint and lightning. Machines orbited me lazily, glowing symbols drifting around their surfaces, rearranging themselves like impatient alphabet soup. She pressed a panel that wasn't a panel. Her hand simply hovered, and the wall responded with rippling light. An image formed beside her showing my body surrounded by moving diagrams. You were exposed to high radiation and internal trauma, she said. I performed the binding scan to stabilize your neural pathways. Sounds fancy, I said. So what you're saying is, that procedure basically means we're married now. It was a joke, a stupid joke. A joke my brain tossed out the door like a drunk courier without checking the address. The room froze. The humming stopped. The floating machines hovered motionless as though offended. Her eyes widened in a very non-medical way. You invoke union? I what? No. Earth humor is, sometimes we say, oh no. A soft chime echoed through the room, like a bell being politely rung by fate. The ceiling shifted to a warm gold hue. Symbols lit up around us, forming a glowing ring. I heard footsteps, or something like footsteps, approaching rapidly outside the pod. She inhaled sharply. The bond has been accepted by the Sovereign Registry. Registry? Bond? That sounds legally binding. Is it legally binding? Oh, please tell me your language translates binding as casual handshake. It does not. I tried to sit up again. The strap tightened like it knew I had made terrible life choices. The door slid open, revealing 2 tall figures in ornate metallic robes with hairstyles that could qualify as architectural wonders. They stared at me, at her, at the room. Then glared daggers so sharp they might have been actual daggers. One hissed, "The nurse has taken the human?" Taken? Human? I suddenly felt like produce someone bought at a discount and immediately regretted. The nurse stepped slightly closer to my pod, long ears angled with tension. It was his invocation, recorded by the seal. I opened my mouth to explain, but what came out was, to be fair, I didn't read the terms and conditions. The robed aliens exchanged looks of outrage, curiosity, and whatever expression means, we will absolutely gossip about this. The nurse leaned down, her face surprisingly close, voice lowered to a whisper meant only for me. In my culture, she murmured. Such words form an unbreakable promise. You have declared union, guardianship, belonging. Oh, I said faintly. Cool. So I guess we really are married. Her emerald eyes met mine, calm but undeniably shaken. Then you belong to me now. Somewhere in the hallway, someone yelled. Somewhere in my brain, every neuron started screaming. The humming resumed. The world tilted. And I realized the universe really needed a disclaimer. Do not joke near legally binding alien rituals. I was escorted, floated really, through the corridors of the alien facility like an unwilling parade balloon. The nurse walked beside me, hands clasped behind her back with clinical calm, while I drifted through the air in a hovering gurney bubble that made gentle beeping sounds as if it were trying to reassure me that the situation was only mildly catastrophic. So, I said, attempting to cross my arms and only succeeding in rotating awkwardly. How long have we been married? 10 minutes? That must be a new galaxy record. She glanced at me with the exhausted patience of a teacher who has already explained the homework instructions 3 times. Clarification. The ritual indicates bonded guardianship, responsibility, shared status. You are not my property. That's a relief, I said, before adding, do your people have a divorce court by any chance? Lawyers? A return policy? Another long blink. I was starting to think their species measured emotion in blinks per minute. We entered a spherical chamber where glowing screens floated like jellyfish. The robed officials from earlier waited, 3 of them now, all with expressions that could curdle milk. One held a crystalline tablet that projected symbols in the air. This bond, the tallest began, was meant to be established with the House of Cyrillin. The human pilot is a strategic asset. I pointed at my floating, bruised self. Hey now, asset is such a cold word. I prefer handsome diplomatic mystery or accidentally charming. No reaction. The nurse stepped slightly forward. His words initiated the oath. The seal accepted. He belongs to my house now. Which house? The shortest demanded. She hesitated. It was subtle, a twitch of her long ears. I am of no house. The reaction was almost audible. Shock rippled through the chamber like a wind. The tallest narrowed his eyes. A bond to a houseless attendant? Unprecedented. Unacceptable. Great, I muttered. I got married and immediately damaged the family reputation. Classic me. The floating gurney beeped sympathetically. The officials launched into rapid, sharp conversation in their native tongue. Melodic yet somehow aggressive, like angry singing. The nurse's posture stiffened. I drifted closer to her and whispered, Okay. Serious question. What happens if they undo this bond? Her jaw tightened. If annulled, both parties undergo memory severance. Risk. Partial identity loss. Oh, I said, voice breaking slightly. Right? So, divorce literally erases part of our brains. Good to know. Really encourages commitment. A panel near us lit up, broadcasting a holographic image of my crashed ship, charred, twisted metal in a smoking crater. The projection highlighted fragments with alien symbols. We recovered data, the official said. You carry knowledge regarding the rift passage. You survived transit through it. No other human has. Well, yeah, I said, but mostly by accident. I didn't exactly steer with confidence. There was a lot of screaming. The nurse turned her gaze to me, something new in her expression. Curiosity softened by concern. Your mind holds patterns of the passage. Unconsciously, even damaged, it could be extracted through the bond. Extracted, I repeated, as in gently borrowed, or aggressively yanked like a bad tooth. Depends on the extractor, she replied. Fantastic, I sighed. I always wanted to be a walking cosmic USB drive. The officials resumed their dramatic council session, but the nurse leaned closer and whispered, almost conspiratorially. Your humor is maladaptive yet statistically effective. It reduces tension. Thanks, I said. It's either that or fainting, and I'm trying new coping mechanisms. Suddenly, alarms pulsed crimson through the air. Symbols flickered. A robotic voice announced something I didn't understand, but the universal tone was the same one alarms use everywhere. Congratulations, everything is on fire. The nurse snapped into motion. The bubble gurney darted after her like a loyal balloon animal as we rushed down the hall. What now? I asked, bumping into a doorway that absolutely moved into my path on purpose. A rival house attempts annulment by force, she said. They seek the bond and the knowledge within you. So, kidnapping, great, adds excitement to marriage. She tapped her wristband, and the walls around us shimmered. A hidden door opened, revealing a narrow passage. You must remain near me, she said. Distance disrupts the stabilizing link. Well, I said as we slipped into the dim corridor. Most couples argue about space, but this is extreme. She paused only long enough to glance back. Not annoyed, not confused, but with the faintest spark of something that looked suspiciously like amusement tugging her lips. For now, she said quietly, humor is permitted. After we survive, we will address consequences. The corridor sealed behind us with a metallic click, leaving only darkness, faint glowing symbols, and the undeniable realization that my worst joke had just become the most important relationship of my life. The hidden passage led us into what I could only describe as a forgotten wing of the facility. Dim halls lined with dormant machines that looked ancient or obsolete, or simply waiting for a dramatic moment to reactivate and scare me. My floating bubble finally lowered me to the floor as gravity returned with a gentle thud that was significantly less gentle for my knees. The nurse moved with swift precision, long ears raised in alert focus, her gaze scanning every shadow. You should regain full motor capability, she said, tapping a device near my wrist. Walk carefully. Your equilibrium may disagree with your decisions. Good advice, I replied. My decisions and balance have never been on speaking terms. The floor pulsed faintly beneath us, a soft ripple of light guiding us. As we followed it, I noticed the walls etched with the same symbols that had glowed during the accidental marriage ritual. The nurse brushed her fingers along them, her calm wavering as something like recognition flickered across her features. This place, she murmured, predates our political houses. So old family drama started here, I said. Good to know we've come to the source. Before she could respond, the far end of the corridor sparked to life. Figures emerged, armored, armed, and very much not here to deliver wedding gifts. The rival faction had found us. The nurse stepped in front of me, and I appreciated the protective gesture, though I wasn't thrilled with my role as valuable luggage. A holographic interface materialized around her arm as she activated some kind of energy field, a barrier shimmering like a soap bubble made of starlight. One of the armored figures called out, "Relinquish the human. The bond is invalid when forged with one of no house." The nurse's voice remained calm, but her words carried weight. This bond was recognized by the sovereign seal. Your dispute is with fate, not with us. And fate, I whispered, could really work on its communication methods. They advanced, weapons powering up with an ominous hum that seemed universally understood as bad news. The nurse grabbed my wrist, not gently, and the walls answered her touch. Symbols blazed to life, and the floor moved beneath us like a conveyor belt made of intentions and questionable safety standards. We were launched down the corridor at disorienting speed. Wind roared past. Lights blurred. I screamed with dignity. We stopped abruptly inside a massive chamber filled with floating crystalline panels. Here, the symbols formed a sphere of shimmering code that reacted to our presence, or rather, to our bond. This is the archives of origin, she said breathlessly, where unions were once recorded and empowered. The pursuing faction burst in behind us, their leader pointing an energy blade our way. End the bond or we end you. I was running out of jokes. That alone terrified me. The nurse turned to me, her voice lower, steady but softened with vulnerability. We can activate the annulment protocol, but it will remove everything tied to the bond, including the passage patterns in your mind. You will forget the crash. You may forget me. I swallowed. And if we don't? Then we accept it fully, she said. Publicly. Permanently. I stared at her, the long ears poised with tension, the silver hair drifting like it was caught in a timeless breeze, the calm facade betrayed only by a subtle tremor of uncertainty. The woman who had treated me like a puzzle, a patient, and unexpectedly, a partner in chaos. Surviving the rift passage, being hunted by factions, nearly losing parts of myself. Every moment felt like the universe teasing me toward a conclusion I hadn't wanted to face. My life had been defined by running, dodging responsibility, disaster, and feelings disguised as sarcasm. Maybe it was time to choose something instead of joke my way past it. I took a breath. Then we accept it. The chamber responded instantly. Light spiraled upward, the symbols forming a halo around us. The opposing faction froze, powerless to interrupt ancient laws older than their ambitions. She looked at me, surprise flickering in her emerald eyes. You are certain? No, I admitted. But certainty is overrated. And losing the parts of my memory that involve you sounds like a terrible bargain. She blinked. Not confusion, not frustration. Something warm. Something new. The light enveloped us, and I felt the bond solidify. Not like a shackle, but like a tether pulling two wayward paths into alignment. The chamber fell silent, the threat dissolved, and the pursuing faction retreated as protocol demanded. When the light faded, we stood side by side. So, I said, finding my humor again now that imminent doom had clocked out, does this mean I get health insurance? You now share my benefits, she replied with a tiny smile, including my enemies. Great, I sighed. Romance with perks. We walked forward together, not running, not hiding, navigating the unknown like partners by choice instead of accident. And as the doors ahead opened to a future full of diplomatic chaos, interspecies awkwardness, and possible assassination attempts, I felt strangely okay. After all, marriage is an adventure, especially when the honeymoon involves outrunning political factions and space-time anomalies with someone who whispers, just loud enough for me to hear, "You belong with me, not because of ritual, but because you chose."